Beyond bent. Janssen! And Blackburn Rovers are 18 minutes away from a Premiership return.
As far as Stewart, just outside the penalty area, clips it central for David Dunn. David Dunn equalises. It just had to be. Dax corner and it goes. Glance towards goal, and Rovers have taken the lead. And Charlie Mulgrew has scored his 14th of the season.
Good evening, Rovers fans, and welcome back to another live edition of On the Other Side with me, Ryan Hildred from Rovers Chat. And we've been away from league action for 10 or so days now, and we bowed out of the FA Cup, didn't we, on Saturday? But back to league action now as we travel to Wales behind closed doors to take on Cardiff City. Giving us the lowdown on the Bluebirds tonight, it is show regular and Cardiff fan Thomas Taylor. How are you, Thomas?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks for having me again. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. You've been on a few times now, so you will give us the lowdown on Cardiff as you always do, I'm sure. And Rovers fans watching, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please hit that subscribe button. Please turn on all notifications using that bell icon. And of course, give this video a big like for us. The super chat is available as it always is. And a big thank you to Blue Rose Capital and 6yardsout.com for their very kind sponsorship. Hello to Kevin. Yeah, you at the moment, Kevin, you're here on your own, but we'll make that work, Kevin. So don't worry. Good to have you along as always, Kevin. So Tom, let's make a start on the preview then. We've spoken before on this show, and, I've told you, my opinion about Cardiff being regular playoff contenders, a team that you do just always expect to be there or thereabouts. But, this season, it's been one of struggles so far, and you do find yourselves down in 20th place. And, that's just 4 points off the relegation zone. And two of those sides below you have had points deductions as well. So did you expect a season of struggle like this?
Not to this extent, not at all. I thought we'd end up mid-table because towards the back end of last season, results were kind of petering off a little bit and performances were kind of dropping. So I thought this year was going to be difficult, and especially, there's so many quality teams in this division, and it's always tough going for the playoffs, and especially this year as well. There's been a few kind of surprise packages, or I'd say, we're pushing for the playoffs now. But I think, they were red flags for this team going into the season, but I don't think anyone in their wildest dreams thought that come, mid-January, we'd be on the brink of a relegation battle. And it's not been good.
Yeah, it's been really surprising to see. And, when I started looking into Cardiff this season, another thing that you associate with Cardiff is being defensively strong. And, you've got the likes of Aidan Flint and Sean Morrison in your side. But I was shocked to see that you've conceded the second most in the league this season. And the 43 that you've conceded is just one behind Peterborough's 44, and they've got the worst. And Rovers, of course, got the 5-1 win earlier on in the season as well. So is it too simple to say that, the goals conceded is the reason why it's gone wrong this season?
I think it's definitely one of them. I put a lot of it down to the horrific form we ended up and the downward spiral we ended up in under Mick McCarthy. I think, you lose 2 or 3 games on the bounce. It's not good, but you think maybe you can turn it around. When it gets to 5, 6, 7, 8, it's like, you're not turning that round. And that has such an impact on the whole team as well. So whoever was going to come in next would have such an uphill battle on their hands. Squad morale must have been through the floor. And, to lose a South Wales derby like that, and just in that completely embarrassing fashion, that to me was sort of the defining moment of the McCarthy era this season. After it started so promising last year when we played there, but granted behind closed doors, but got the 1-0 win, just to be completely embarrassed, and nobody really looks like they cared. They weren't playing for the manager. So that's certainly one other reason, a big reason. And, it was, our team's not the quickest, and that doesn't have to be an issue. But when we tried to go with this 5 at the back that McCarthy used so much, and granted Steve Morrison is using as well, you kind of want to have a little bit of pace there. And we had it with Giles, to be fair, but Wolves have recalled him now. So I'm hoping that Cody Drama can add a little bit of more of that. But I think it's just such a multitude of issues that, could have ended up being at the worst case scenario, and they've kind of gone past that, and we end up in the position that we are.
And for Rovers fans who are watching in, and the game that Tom just referenced there, 17th of October, Swansea beating Cardiff 3-0 there towards the end of Mick McCarthy's campaign. And yeah, Tom, when you are conceding goals and Cardiff aren't scoring the most this season, you're not going to come out on the right side of those 1-0 and 2-0 victories when you are conceding those goals. So it's plain to see there with the form. And, is there hope that Cardiff are going to get out of this? Is there expectation that you'll eventually get out of this rut and away from the relegation zone?
It's really hard to tell. And I think this next month is going to be essentially make or break for us. Nobody's expecting anything particularly brilliant for the rest of the season, but it doesn't have to be, because we can't go down. It's just as simple as that. We can't afford to get relegated. And we've got 2 games back to back. We're going away to Barnsley and then home to Peterborough in a couple of weeks' time. And that you have to win both of them. Otherwise, it's the teams around us as well that are starting to do quite last night to Fulham.
It was. We've been there.
Yeah. But I think it says something about how serious the kind of situation is when a team that's close to you in the table lose 7-0 and their goal difference still ends up better than yours. I think that's quite telling of how badly things have gone so far. And Derby are starting to get better. They're kind of worrying me just a little bit. I think without the points deduction, but they'd be a lot better than where they are now. They wouldn't be bottom of the league, that's for sure. And Rooney's got them playing some decent football. So I think the next month and a half maybe, is going to really, it's make or break for us, really, in those big games like Peterborough and Barnsley, where we need results quickly.
Yeah, looking at the table there, those Peterborough and Barnsley games are absolutely massive. You've got a 4-point cushion over Peterborough at the moment. And do my maths, a 9-point cushion on Barnsley. So certainly avoiding defeat in those games and keeping those below you is important for Cardiff. And it would be a bad season to go down, wouldn't it, with the points deductions of Reading and Derby. And certainly Peterborough were expected to come up and struggle as well. So, and Hull are obviously down there with you as well, and they were expected to come up and struggle. So it would be a poor season to go down. So let's talk about the manager. You referenced the 8 defeats in a row earlier. With the season of struggle that you've had, not surprising that you've had that change in manager. Mick McCarthy was sacked in October after 8 straight defeats, the worst in your history as well, I read. What's probably more surprising, though, is that you've not got an experienced replacement. Steve Morrison was appointed full-time in charge in November, and he spent time with both McCarthy and Neil Harris in their coaching staff. So what sort of job has Steve Morrison done so far?
To be honest, I think the signs are there for improvement. There's the occasional game where it's, been kind of similar to McCarthy performances. One that sticks out was Hull City at home just before Christmas time, and we ended up losing 1-0, which wasn't good, and it was a really poor performance. But I have confidence in Steve Morrison. He knows the team. He knows quite a lot of the youngsters. He was under 23s coach before he got our job, and the under 23s had I think they were unbeaten when Morrison took over. First just was going to be caretaker. So I think they made the right call. We needed to kind of have a bit of a move away from that Warnock McCarthy kind of mold of a manager, someone, and there was kind of the feeling amongst the fans as well, especially I think Steve Bruce was sacked by Newcastle a couple of weeks before, and I think most City fans were fully expecting it would end up being somebody like him, who was a safe pair of hands, but it's nothing you can really plan for with a long term. It would just be another get them in to keep us up kind of job. But with Steve Morrison, I think there's generally a bit of optimism that if he gets a bit of money to make some signings that he wants and integrates the youth a bit more, which he's been doing, to be fair to him, and McCarthy did as well, then I think he could definitely keep us up this year and hopefully push on to better things in future as well.
Yeah, and looking at the results under Steve Morrison, I think it's 11 games that you've had under Morrison. A couple of them postponed due to COVID. 3 defeats in 11 games, so he does seem to have slowed down that sharp decline under McCarthy. 4 victories as well. Has there been a noticeable change in your style of play and how you've been playing? Is it starting to come to fruition, what you're seeing under Morrison?
Yeah, it's starting to get a bit better. But it couldn't have gone much worse under McCarthy, to be honest. The players look, a bit more interested now. There's a little bit more fight to them, I think. Yeah, and like I've previously mentioned, getting some of the youth integrated a bit more, so like Ruben Colwill even, and Isaac Davis. I'm those two especially really big fans of, and I think they'll be massive for us in the future. And yeah, so I think probably just a bit more of that youth integration would be nice. And but I think the signs are there. It's early days, and it was always going to be when you come from like I feel bad constantly dragging him all the time, but it's just the style of play and results were so poor under McCarthy towards the end. It's like it was always going to take time to try and fully change it. It was never going to be a miracle overnight, everything's sunshine and rainbows kind of job. So I think the signs are there.
And certainly if there's youth players being integrated into the side, it's just so much nicer when you see that, isn't it? And Rovers, we've had 5 academy players starting in our starting 11 this season, which just makes it so easy to support. So yeah, I was also surprised by how poor Cardiff were under McCarthy, when you rocked up at Ewood Park and we battered you that game. I was expecting a much tougher game. Just before we move on, Tom, I will just come to a comment from Steve here. So sad news about Chevy Singh tonight. So yeah, Chevy Singh, previously a global advisor to Rovers in the early days under Venky's. Obviously loads of bad things associated with the club at that point, but it's been nice reading on Twitter tonight, the genuinely good stories about Chevy Singh and the fact he was a decent human being at the bottom of it all, just wrapped into an unfortunately toxic time at the club. And I think most Rovers fans will agree that Chevy's part in removing the manager at that point, Steve Keane, we'll be grateful for him ridding the club of some of the poison we had then. So yeah, rest in peace, Chevy. So well said, Steve, for dragging that one there. So Tom, let's go to the playing personnel then. With a team that's been struggling, goals haven't been flowing, understandably, but top scorer is once again Kiefer Moore. 5 goals this season. How has he done this season, and will he be facing Rovers on Saturday?
I'm not sure that he'll be facing Rovers because he tested positive for COVID towards the end of last week, just before the Preston game in the FA Cup. And obviously there's stuff about vaccine status I'm not sure about, because I know he had it in the summer, and I think this might be maybe even his 3rd time having it. I'm not too sure, but I'm not sure if he'll be playing. He might just be out in time, but then there's issues of fitness if he's not been able to train properly and whatnot. I think at times he has struggled a bit this season. He's not really been able to get that form that he was in last year. He was scoring goals for fun. He was easily our best player. And I think probably him being out of form a bit, partly out of him being out of form, and other side of it that he's not really getting the service from the players. There's not too much creativity in the team, and now probably a bit less that Giles has gone back to Wolves. So I think it was a bit of both. So he's been okay, and he's still our top scorer, but with 5 goals, you'd hope for your star striker, who in the summer was linked with a move to Wolves on deadline day for about, I think it was about 12 million plus add-ons. You'd hope for a little bit more.
Yeah, and I am surprised that he is still at you, actually, because I think, the stuff he's done with Wales in particular, in Euro 2020 and with the national side, Premier League clubs do sit up and take notice, don't they? And certainly we're finding that out with Brereton Diaz now and Chile and things. So, yeah, obviously he'll be key for Cardiff staying up, and other people that will be key. Cardiff this season, this is probably an unsurprising stat where I've been saying surprising things this season. 12 goals from set pieces this season, which is the most in the division. And obviously aligned to that, you've got Aidan Flint on 4 goals, and then Sean Morrison and Mark McGuinness with 3 goals each from the back also. So do you think that set pieces remain an important way for Cardiff to stay up this season and ultimately win the game on Saturday against Rovers as well?
I think they will be. There needs to be a bit of improvement at them, even though we're top scorers. When it becomes kind of a method where you're so reliant on goals from them, and we have the players to score from there. I think out of the 3 defenders you mentioned, Mark McGuinness has been probably the best out of the 3. He's very, very passionate. I think he's got all the qualities to be captain possibly next season if Sean Morrison's contract doesn't get renewed. So I think it's something we need to improve on a little bit, but at the same time, it's obviously one of our strongest points to get goals from.
And despite the struggle this season, certainly I've seen the likes of Ruben Colwill grabbing some headlines this season. So who else has stood out for Cardiff this season, despite the season that you've had?
So as I previously mentioned, Mark McGuinness, I think he plays with so much maturity. I think at the time when we signed him, I thought he was quite a clever signing, because from bits and bobs that I'd seen of him before, I think he was at Ipswich last season on loan. He looked really impressive then. And I think for somebody who's quality now, and it's the defence that we sort of, kind of pride ourselves on it, that Cardiff's defence is, well, especially last few years, it's always been brilliant. And this season it's not. But he's definitely been a diamond in the rough. So Mark McGuinness for sure. Ryan Giles, who unfortunately now has been recalled by Wolves, but he gave us a bit of pace down the left-hand side, and it was something that Joel Bagan doesn't really offer that much compared to him. And as well, probably Isaac Davis and Mark Harris, 2 of the youngsters, who both scored Saturday in the FA Cup against Preston. Harris I'm a massive fan of, and Davis as well. And it's exciting. It feels like the first time in a while that we've got real quality youth players coming through, where they can, kind of smash through that ceiling and, go on to do really good things for us. So, I'd say definitely quite a lot of the youngsters this year have impressed me in, what's been a pretty rough season for us.
And before we come on to your predicted 11, I'll just do a shout out to 464-528, otherwise known as Numbers, on our watch-alongs from last season. Good to have you on the stream tonight. I'll be back on the watch-along for one time only on Saturday, because we can't go to the game. It's behind closed doors. So come and join Jared, myself, and Luke for the watch-along on Saturday. So hello to Numbers, the original Numbers. So, Tom, I have seen your predicted 11, and there is a name that isn't on it, which I'm sure will delight a lot of Rovers fans. So I'm going to ask you to talk through this side in a moment. But where is Will Vaulks on Saturday? Because I am delighted that he's not playing, because he is most certainly our bogey player, and those long throws cause us a problem, and he scored goals from outside the box against us as well. So where is Will Vaulks? Just as I flash that up, I'll come back. Where is he on Saturday?
I think he'll probably get on at some point. It was a bit of a toss-up between whether I chose either.
I thought you were going to tell me he was injured or something.
No, I'm afraid not. It was a toss-up between either him or Marlon Pack, if I put it in, because they're both fairly similar players. Both got a long throw. Vokes' throw is a bit better than Pack's, but Pack's has been playing a little bit more recently.
Well, I'll flash your side back up. I interrupted you with the Will Volks talk. So talk us through that side, back to front. You've got it in that 3-5-2 formation. So yeah, sorry, talk us through that.
Yeah, I think eventually I want to see us kind of move away from the 3-5-2, but I don't think I think that depends on business that we do in January now. So I think this is probably the best we can go with. Thankfully, Joe Rolls is back. He played on Sunday even against Preston, and I thought he did all right then. Colwell, for me, has to start because I think he's at this season, he's been one of our best midfielders. And, he has that kind of spark of creativity. And looking forward to see what Cody Drama, I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce it, can bring in. He's just signed today in the last couple of hours on loan from Leeds. And the consensus on Twitter from Leeds fans is that he's a pretty good player. So hopefully we can see him get his debut. He should be registered in time before Saturday. And then the two up top, where usually I would put Moore in over Collins, but to be fair to Collins, he has been improving, and I think he's been decent enough backup for Kiefer Moore. He had a bit of a grim start to the season, but it's nice to see him score because he's only scored twice, but every time he does, he looks like really kind of passionate and looks genuinely happy to be at the club, which is something we need. And then Mark Harris, youngster, he's played a couple of times for Wales as well. Nearly scored on his debut for Wales, actually. And I think he's done a decent job for us this season as well. And I think he'll only get better looking into the future.
So, Steve, you've obviously not been listening to a word that me or Tom have been saying. Where is Kiefer Moore? Tom was saying that suspected COVID, Steve. So Tom's unsure whether, whether Kiefer Moore is going to play. If he is fit to play, Tom, do you expect Kiefer Moore to start over James Collins?
If he's fit, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then he just might be taken off a bit earlier.
Absolutely. And if there's areas of weakness where Rovers can get you on Saturday, obviously we've done it already this season with the 5-1 at Ewood Park, but of course it's going to be a different Cardiff City that we're playing now, certainly under Steve Morrison. So where are the areas of weakness where we can hurt you?
I'd say defence again. We don't really have the quickest back line, and the thought of Ben Brereton Diaz against Aidan Flynn, it's giving me cold sweats at night, and I'm not looking forward to that battle at all. So I think definitely defence is usually our strongest point, but this season it's been quite shocking, and I think how good Rovers have been going forward from the games that I've seen and bits I've seen. I think that it has especially if it's behind closed doors as well, it kind of takes away from the atmosphere, and it could be an area where you end up hurting us.
I was watching the highlights back a little bit earlier on, and it's amazing how you just forget games, even ones that you win 5-1. And the space that we had in midfield was quite remarkable. John Buckley in particular was just able to pick a few passes, and you just seem quite loose in that midfield area. So is that somewhere where you felt a bit more competitive in recent weeks under Morrison?
Slowly but surely, yeah. I think it is getting a bit better. I think we need to get the balance right, which is why I'd be reluctant to play both Marlon Pack and Will Vokes.
Yeah.
So I think they're essentially both two sides of the same coin, and they're just far too similar for me. And then you lose that balance a little bit. Whereas with Joe Rolls, who has been injured for a little bit, he has that little bit of sort of can hold the midfield and a bit more like box to box.
Yeah, and that balance is important. And I think it's why Rovers are having some joy this season, actually, because our midfield three have been picking themselves. And, Lewis Travis, Joe Rothwell and John Buckley have been picking themselves, and they just blend each other really well. They all do something different in that midfield area. So, yeah, I absolutely get that, Tom. And just final couple of questions before the prediction. What did you make of that reverse fixture at Ewood Park? You know, it was a heavy defeat for Cardiff, obviously enjoyable for us. Do you think there's going to be an element of Cardiff gunning for revenge on that one?
I hope so. I remember seeing the scores coming in, just being in absolute disbelief because I genuinely thought, because I knew that Ewood Park is a bit of a fortress and Rovers are a good team, but I thought just with what you'd said about how you struggled a bit against big, tall, physical teams, I thought maybe we can nick something. Yeah, we can get a point. So when it was about 3-0 down after 20 minutes, I thought, oh great, here we go. It's gonna be one of those Cardiff games. And yeah, it was the start of things. Even though I think we lost 2 on the bounce by then under McCarthy. That was the start of things. Went from bad to just really bad, and it just all went downhill from there.
Yeah, I was quite surprised by Cardiff that game, and the game. I'm just looking at our fixtures now. We had Hull at home before we played you, and then before that it was West Brom at home. So it's probably when I mentioned to you about West Brom, because they were a physical specimen at Ewood Park and they beat us. And then we also had Luton at home, after the West Brom game, and they were physical and got stuck in as well. So I was surprised by Cardiff, and certainly was not expecting that scoreline. But Steve's read my notes as well. Let me flash his comments. Final question before the prediction, Tom. No fans at the stadium. I believe this is the first league game that you will have had with no fans during these current restrictions. Yeah. Just the one FA Cup game that you had against Preston at the weekend. So do you think that is going to affect your performances? No crowd in the stadium.
It's a bit of a strange one, because when the atmosphere gets rocking, it gets really good, and you can tell the kind of impact it has behind the team. But at times as well, after the restart first time around, I remember Leeds were on their promotion push. First game back was at the Cardiff City Stadium, and behind closed doors we ended up winning 2-0, which was a bit of a surprise. So it could help us, but like we saw Sunday even, I keep saying Sunday against Preston in the Cup, I think that kind of helped us a bit. So when things weren't going that great, it didn't really have that pressure on you from the crowd. But at the same time, it can be such a big hindrance.
Yeah, it's going to be strange for the players, I think, as well, because they've probably all just got used to playing in front of crowds again, obviously, after the season and a bit without crowds. And certainly Rovers, Ewood Park has been a magnificent atmosphere for Rovers this season. And there's been some great grounds where we've been to in terms of atmosphere. Derby, I remember being particularly loud. Middlesbrough weren't bad away from home this season, and all the usual suspects. Cardiff is another stadium where you expect it to be a tough place to go. So it'll be interesting. I think both sides might just think, it might just take a bit of adjustment. I wonder if the game will be just a little bit flat in that first instance without the crowd there. And then eventually it will just pick up into a bit of a contest. So, Tom, final thing then, how this goes. I want a prediction from you and myself. We'll put each other on the spot, and Rovers fans in the comments, please do get your predictions into that comments box, just like Steve and Kevin have already done. They know the score. They know what to do. So everyone else, get your predictions in as well. So, Tom, I'm going to come to you first for your prediction.
I think it's going to be very tough. I think, Rovers' season just speaks for itself. And with how much we've struggled against teams like Rovers, it's not going to be easy at all. But with that being said, unbeaten in 2022, which we have to take all the positives we can at the minute. We went away to West Brom, which on paper is a pretty tough place, and a game we actually should have won, and we ended up drawing. So with all that in mind, I'm going to say the unbeaten in 2022 run continues, but I'm going to go for 2-2.
2-2, that'll be an entertaining game. Where am I? I do think Rovers will win the game. I think that the FA Cup defeat that we just had on Saturday is just a little reminder to Rovers about what can go wrong and the fact that we need to keep up the form, stay professional, not take our foot off the gas and all of those types of things. I think that we will enjoy playing with no fans at the Cardiff City Stadium. I do think that eventually that will come good for us. Although I thought we responded brilliantly against Derby, as I say. We really set our stall out early in that game. They were loud. They were passionate. I'm going to say 2-1 Rovers victory. Goal scorer wise, Diaz, maybe a penalty. And then I fancy, let's go John Buckley. Buckley for a goal and Diaz for a goal as well. And then just because he will come on at some point, Will Volks will score for Cardiff. You heard that here first. He will bloody score. So there we go. So Rovers fans, get your predictions in. At the moment, I've only got Steve and Kevin's to go off, so I need a better sample than that. But Steve has gone 3-1 Rovers, and Kev, you've gone 4-1 Rovers. Diaz, Duppel, Bucko, and Dolan. Fantastic. Love that. And then, yes, Stephen, just have I missed something? No fans, as people have pointed out in the comments. The COVID restrictions in Wales are different to England. So fans are not allowed in the stadiums at the moment in Wales until further notice. And that may well affect our game against Swansea at the start of February, depending on how long it goes on for. Here we go. We've got more predictions now. Joshua, 3-2 Rovers, and then Mick, 2-0 Rovers. Love it. So positivity in the Rovers camp for this game. So let's see how we do. Alexander's gone 3-1 Rovers and Jackie 3-2 Rovers. So feels like a bit of a full house, Tom. We're obviously confident about this one, so my apologies. But I just want to say thank you for joining us on the show tonight, mate. Always love you coming on and talking all things Cardiff. And yeah, you've been on a few times now, so we'll have you back at some point. Maybe not next season if we're in the Prem, but if we're not, we'll have you back on the show if you've stayed up. So thank you.
Cheers.
And Rovers fans watching in, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Please give this video a big like, and please turn on all notifications using that bell icon, because there is content going out every day, it seems, at the moment, sometimes twice a day, with the transfer window being open. So the only way to stay up to date with that is to hit that bell icon. Big thank you to our sponsors, 6yardsout.com and Blue Rose Capital. I'll say goodbye to Tom. I'll say bye to all the Rovers fans, and we will see you soon. See you later, everyone. The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.